What would you do if you were asked to give away one of your vital organs, not for a stranger, but for someone who you trusted and worked for? Would you say yes? And if you did, would you ever expect that kindness to lead to your undoing? In a world where kindness is often seen as a weakness, Debbie Stevens was an exception. 47 years old, with a heart that still beat with unguarded generosity, she worked at a place where compassion rarely found its way through the cold steel of corporate ambition. Debbie Stevens was a woman driven by a simple principle: do what's right. To some, she was an anomaly. In a world where the relentless pursuit of success often crushed empathy under its heel, Debbie stood as a beacon of compassion, a trait she wore like a badge of honor despite the corporate culture that surrounded her. She had been employed at Atlantic Automotive Group for nearly a year, performing the day-to-day clerical work at one of the company's high-pressure dealerships. The job was demanding, the stakes high and the hours long, but Debbie loved what she did. The work gave her a sense of purpose, even if she knew she had to sacrifice pieces of herself to make it work. Her relationship with Carmen Rivera, her colleague and confidant, was the closest thing she had to a true friendship in the company. Carmen saw Debbie for who she was: selfless, often going above and beyond for the people around her, even at her own expense. But Carmen wasn't blind to the pressures that came with working at Atlantic Automotive. It was a company where performance was everything, where loyalty to the job was demanded, and where employees were treated like assets, replaceable at a moment's notice. But Debbie, for all the challenges she faced, always seemed to weather them with a smile. Her kindness was infectious, and it made her beloved by those who saw beyond the corporate veneer. However, as the months passed, Carmen began to notice something that gave her pause. Debbie was too trusting. Carmen, ever the realist, warned Debbie once, "You can't always be the one who gives, Debbie. Sometimes people take and they don't always give back." But Debbie, with her warm smile and belief in doing the right thing, brushed it off. "I can handle it, Carmen. I believe in helping people. That's what makes the world a little bit better, right?" Carmen couldn't argue with that. But, as Debbie would soon discover, some people take without ever intending to give anything back. Her name was Jackie Brucia, a high-ranking employee at Atlantic Automotive Group. She was everything Debbie admired in a boss: confident, assertive, and seemingly kind-hearted. But behind the polished exterior, there was more to Jackie than met the eye. Debbie was about to learn that. Jackie Brucia was a force of nature, a 61-year-old woman who had risen through the ranks of Atlantic Automotive Group with a mix of strategic intelligence and a certain charisma that made people gravitate toward her. To Debbie, she was the epitome of professional success. But Jackie wasn't just a business leader. She was someone who knew how to command respect with the quiet authority of someone who had seen it all. The first time Jackie and Debbie had a real conversation, it felt like a meeting of two kindred spirits. Jackie, weary from years of corporate warfare, found solace in the easy camaraderie she shared with Debbie. The two of them spoke about the pressures of the company, the constant expectations, and the way they both found peace in small acts of kindness. But it was a conversation that happened one fateful afternoon, just as Debbie was about to leave for a trip to Florida that would change everything. Jackie confided in Debbie about something deeply personal: her kidney disease. "It's been tough," Jackie admitted, her voice laced with vulnerability. "I've been on the transplant list for months now, but the wait is just unbearable. I have a family friend who might be a match, but..." Her voice trailed off, and Debbie could hear the frustration in her words. Debbie, moved by Jackie's openness, found herself offering something she never thought she would: her kidney. She said it without hesitation, without fully understanding the consequences. "If you ever need it, Jackie, I'll be happy to help." "I would donate my kidney to you," Debbie said, her words sincere, driven by a deep-rooted sense of compassion. Jackie smiled warmly, but there was something unreadable in her eyes. "You never know, Debbie, I might just take you up on that offer one day," she replied. But the way she said it, half joking, half serious, left Debbie with an uneasy feeling she couldn't quite place. But at that moment, the seeds of something far darker were being planted. Debbie's offer was made out of pure kindness. What she didn't know, however, was that Jackie Brucia was about to turn that kindness into something that would change both their lives forever. It was only after a few weeks back that Jackie called her into her office. The moment Debbie walked in, something felt off. Jackie, usually so composed, was visibly shaken. She wasted no time. "My donor was denied," Jackie said, her voice tinged with frustration. "Were you serious when you said you'd donate?" Debbie blinked, her mind racing. It wasn't a casual offer, and Jackie knew that. But Debbie, always the good-hearted soul, agreed to move forward. She didn't think twice. Her kindness, which had always been her strength, was now being manipulated by the very person she had trusted. Debbie had been told many things about organ donation, but nothing prepared her for the ethical weight of her decision. Dr. Emily Green, a transplant surgeon, explained the risks and the potential consequences of her choice. It was a conversation that would haunt Debbie for months to come. Debbie, now grappling with the reality of what she had agreed to, decided to consult Dr. Emily Green, a trusted transplant surgeon. Dr. Green explained the risks of organ donation, the physical toll, the potential complications, and the emotional aftermath. "The decision to donate an organ is never easy," Dr. Green said, her voice calm but firm. "It's a gift, yes, but it's a gift that comes with its own set of challenges. I just want you to be sure, Debbie. There are long-term effects you may not even consider." But Debbie, driven by her desire to help, brushed off the concerns. In her mind, this was the right thing to do. But the warning bells were ringing in the back of her mind, and she couldn't silence them. Debbie's offer to donate her kidney is not one made lightly. It's a decision she weighs carefully, her compassionate nature pulling her toward the idea of saving a life, while the sheer magnitude of such a sacrifice creates a heavy weight on her chest. There is no doubt in her mind that this is the right thing to do. She remembered the first conversation with Jackie, the way Jackie confided in her, the vulnerability in her voice. Jackie's kidney disease was no secret, but hearing her speak about it, so raw and honest, struck Debbie deeply. Perhaps it was the connection they'd shared over the years, the professional respect that had slowly turned into something more personal. Or perhaps it was just Debbie's natural instinct to help those in need. Her decision to offer her kidney is simple, even pure in her mind. She wants to do something good. She believes in kindness. But as she voices her offer, the words feel weighty, pregnant, with the magnitude of what she's suggesting. The gesture feels both bold and selfless, yet beneath the surface, something about Jackie's reaction doesn't sit right. Jackie's smile is warm, but there's something in her eyes, a flicker of something calculating, that Debbie doesn't notice. She brushes off Debbie's offer with a vague response. "You never know, I may have to take you up on that offer one day." Jackie's tone is light, almost dismissive, but Debbie doesn't catch it. She hears only the sincerity in her own words, and Jackie's laughter feels comforting. She doesn't suspect that this act of goodwill will be twisted into something far more sinister. At the moment, she feels only the warmth of helping another human being, and the bond they share deepens with this exchange. But as Debbie leaves the office that day, she feels a small but nagging uncertainty, a question in the back of her mind. Was Jackie's response genuine? Was there something more to her words than she realized? But Debbie shakes it off. She's made her decision, and that's all that matters. Debbie's return to Atlantic Automotive Group is an emotionally charged moment. It's been 2 months since she left Long Island for vacations, and as she walks back through the familiar office halls, there's a sense of coming home. The air feels the same. The buzz of the office hums like it always did. And then there's Jackie, her boss, but also someone she believes to be a friend. Jackie greets her with open arms, her warmth a stark contrast to the harsh business environment Debbie had left behind. Their reunion is a seamless one. Jackie expresses delight at having Debbie back, even going so far as to assign her to a high-profile project. "You're exactly what we need right now," Jackie tells her. "It's good to have you back." But as the days go on, Debbie begins to feel like something is subtly off. It's not Jackie's demeanor. It's too perfect, too sweet. It's how often Jackie calls her into her office for catch-up meetings. How Jackie seems to ask for Debbie's opinion on things that Debbie feels should be her own responsibility. During one of these meetings, Jackie asks Debbie about her kidney donation again, but this time it feels almost rehearsed, like she's laying the groundwork for something. "I can't tell you how much I appreciate you offering to donate," Jackie says, her voice dripping with gratitude. But there's an underlying pressure there that Debbie misses. Jackie has the perfect mix of kindness and neediness. And Debbie, ever the empathy, doesn't realize how cleverly Jackie has crafted this relationship. Jackie isn't just showing gratitude, she's building a sense of obligation. 2 months pass. Debbie settles back into her role at Atlantic Automotive, and the office feels more like home than it ever did. But one morning, Jackie calls her into her office. There's an urgency in the way Jackie looks at her, a hint of desperation. She speaks quickly, as if she's afraid someone will overhear. "My donor was denied," Jackie says. There's no warmth in her voice now, only the stark reality of her situation. "Are you still serious about donating?" The directness of her words shocks Debbie. It's not the casual conversation they had the last time. This is a demand. And it takes Debbie a moment to process what Jackie is asking. Debbie's mind races. She recalls her offer, but now it feels like a heavy burden. Jackie's gaze holds steady. She's waiting, watching Debbie's every reaction. The tension in the air grows thick. Debbie, trying to hide her unease, nods slowly. "Yes. Yes, I'm serious." But something in her gut shifts. She's always been a doer, someone who doesn't hesitate when it comes to helping others. But now, she feels like she's been backed into a corner. Her offer to help Jackie was made freely, out of a sense of kindness. But now, that kindness feels like an obligation. And Jackie's words feel too rehearsed, too demanding. Yet Debbie, still caught in the cycle of wanting to help, agrees to go through with it. She tells herself she's doing the right thing, but as she leaves the office, the heavy weight of the decision presses down on her chest. Why did it feel so different this time? Debbie goes through with the donation. It happens quietly, with little fanfare. The pain is excruciating. Her recovery is slow, far slower than she anticipated, but the physical pain is nothing compared to the mental strain. She wonders, why does it feel like I've made a mistake? She's left struggling with her own recovery, questioning everything. The tension is palpable. She sacrificed her health and well-being to help someone who may not have needed it in the first place. Meanwhile, Jackie is nowhere to be found. Debbie hears nothing from her. Jackie continues to move forward with her life, seemingly unbothered by the toll Debbie is going through. The disparity between their two recoveries grows clear. Jackie's life is returning to normal, while Debbie's is falling apart. As the days stretch into weeks, Debbie's discomfort grows. She's still recovering, physically and emotionally, but there's a nagging voice in her head that won't let her rest. Was this all a mistake? She doesn't know the answer, but she can't ignore the growing sense of betrayal. At work, Jackie's behavior has shifted. She's more distant now, her tone colder, more businesslike. It's as if the warmth between them, the bond they shared, has evaporated, replaced by something more transactional. Debbie hears rumors from other employees. She overhears a conversation about Jackie's attitude in the office, how she has become more demanding and dismissive of others. It's subtle, but it stings. Debbie wants to believe it's not true. She doesn't want to believe that the woman she helped so selflessly could be using her like this. And yet, the pieces are starting to come together. The warmth Jackie once exuded is now replaced with something far more calculating. Debbie's inner conflict intensifies. She's not sure whether she's the victim of manipulation or if this is just the natural fallout of a generous act gone wrong. But the ethical dilemma eats away at her. She feels betrayed, used, and above all, exploited. But how could she have known? How could she have known that her kindness would lead her down this painful road? Debbie's recovery is supposed to be a time of healing, both physically and emotionally. But instead, every day is a struggle. The intense pain from the kidney donation surgery, combined with complications, makes each movement feel like an insurmountable challenge. Her body, which once felt strong and capable, now feels foreign and weak. The doctors have told her to rest, that her body needs time to adjust, but there's a constant, invisible pressure weighing on her, Jackie. At first, Jackie expresses concern, though her words feel more like a professional obligation than genuine care. "I hope you're recovering well, Debbie," she says during a brief conversation in the office. "We really need you back. You're one of the best we have here." Debbie feels torn. She doesn't want to disappoint Jackie, but she knows she's not ready to return. The pain is unbearable, and every attempt to resume her normal activities leaves her exhausted and frustrated. But as the days pass, the pressure mounts. Jackie starts calling her more frequently, asking when she'll be back, when she'll be fully healed. Each conversation feels more like a demand than a concern. "You're tough, Debbie. I know you can handle this," Jackie says with a forced smile during a phone call. "Don't let this setback keep you down." Debbie feels obligated. She tells herself that her recovery is just a small bump in the road, and that she can push through, but the truth is her body is telling her otherwise. Every time she tries to get back to work, the physical toll is greater. Her body aches, her energy levels plummet, and the emotional strain of not being able to perform as she once did begins to eat away at her. Debbie's return to work doesn't bring the relief she had hoped for. Instead, it marks the beginning of a new, darker chapter in her relationship with Jackie. The first time it happens, Debbie is sitting at her desk, trying to focus on the pile of work that has accumulated during her absence. She's still recovering, still fatigued, but she's doing her best to keep up. And then Jackie appears in front of her, her eyes narrowed. "Debbie," Jackie says, her voice raised just enough to draw attention, "I didn't realize we were going to start treating you like you're special. You can't just come and go as you please. People are starting to talk." Debbie's heart sinks. She knows she's not ready to be back, but she didn't expect this. She didn't expect to be scolded in front of her colleagues for doing the very thing she was told to do, recover. The humiliation stings. Debbie tries to defend herself, but Jackie cuts her off. "You need to pull your weight around here, Debbie. This isn't a charity," Jackie snaps, her words cold and dismissive. Debbie wants to shrink away, to crawl back into her office and hide, but she forces herself to sit up straight, to appear strong. She nods quietly, but inside she feels like she's unraveling. This pattern continues over the following weeks. Debbie is berated in front of co-workers, accused of slacking off, of taking special treatment because of her kidney donation. Jackie's demeanor shifts from cold and distant to openly hostile. Each meeting becomes a trial, where Debbie is made to feel as though she's failed the company and her boss. The emotional toll of the harassment begins to take a visible toll on Debbie. She withdraws into herself, becoming a shell of the woman she once was. The spark in her eyes dims. She's always been someone who prided herself on being self-sufficient, on being strong. But now, she feels like she's been ground down, piece by piece. Debbie doesn't confide in anyone about her suffering, not even Jackie, who she once trusted. She's ashamed of what's happening, and it seems impossible to speak out against the woman who once seemed so kind and supportive. One evening, as Debbie sits at her desk, buried under paperwork, Carmen approaches. She's Debbie's closest friend at work, and she notices the change almost immediately. Debbie's eyes are bloodshot, her movements slow, and her posture is slumped in a way that suggests exhaustion far beyond physical pain. "Debbie," Carmen says gently, her voice laced with concern, "you don't look well. You haven't been yourself. What's going on?" Debbie looks up, startled. She forces a smile, but it doesn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Carmen, just a lot of work to catch up on." Carmen is unconvinced. "Come on, I know you better than that. What's really going on?" For the first time, Debbie allows herself to be vulnerable. She tells Carmen about the pain, the pressure from Jackie, the humiliation in front of the office. She speaks in a low, shaky voice, her emotions surfacing for the first time. Carmen listens quietly, her face hardening as she hears Debbie's words. "That's not right, Debbie," Carmen says, her voice filled with anger. "She's taking advantage of you. You need to talk to someone. This isn't normal." Debbie shakes her head, unsure. "I don't know, Carmen. She's my boss. She's the one who hired me back. I can't just turn my back on her now." Carmen doesn't let it go. "You're not turning your back on her, you're standing up for yourself. You don't deserve to be treated this way. You need to seek help." Debbie doesn't respond right away, but Carmen's words stick with her. They echo in her mind long after the conversation is over. She begins to wonder if Carmen might be right, if she's been too silent for too long. As the days go on, Carmen's concern deepens. She continues to watch Debbie's emotional decline, the way Debbie seems to shrink under the weight of the pressure and harassment. Carmen knows she can't just stand by and watch her friend deteriorate. She starts to take matters into her own hands. She urges Debbie to seek legal advice, to explore her options and understand her rights. "You have a case, Debbie. You've been wronged. It's not just your health, it's your career, and it's affecting your well-being. You deserve better." Debbie is hesitant at first, unsure if she wants to rock the boat, but Carmen's steady encouragement pushes her toward the idea of standing up for herself. Slowly, Debbie begins to consider the possibility of taking action. Still, the emotional strain is immense. Every phone call, every email from Jackie, every encounter in the office is a reminder of how far things have fallen. Debbie feels like a ghost in her own life, unsure of what to do or where to turn. The constant pressure from Jackie continues to build, and Debbie's health continues to deteriorate. She feels trapped, like there's no way out of this cycle. Jackie's demands feel endless, and Debbie's emotional strength is waning. Every time Debbie tries to speak up, Jackie deflects, belittles her, or gaslights her. Every time Debbie feels she's doing something right, Jackie turns it into something wrong. The tension escalates to the point where Debbie is physically sick from the stress. She feels sick in her stomach, her head aches, and her entire body feels drained of energy. Debbie's world continues to unravel as the months drag on. The workplace that once felt like a second home now feels like a prison. After enduring constant criticism and harassment from Jackie, Debbie is dealt another blow. She is demoted. The news comes swiftly and without warning. Jackie calls Debbie into her office one day, her expression as cold as ever. There's no empathy, no acknowledgement of Debbie's emotional or physical pain. "Debbie," Jackie begins, her voice flat, "we're transferring you to a new location, effective immediately. You'll be working at the dealership in Central Islip." Debbie is stunned. Central Islip is a far cry from the familiar office she's known for years. It's located in a high-crime area, surrounded by dilapidated buildings and vacant lots. Co-workers have taken to calling it Siberia, an isolated, desolate place that feels like a punishment. Debbie feels her heart sink. She has no choice but to accept. The demotion feels like a public humiliation, a clear indication that she is no longer valued at the company. Every fiber of her being wants to protest, but she has no leverage left. She's already been pushed to the edge, and this decision feels like the final straw. When Debbie arrives at the new dealership, the atmosphere is even colder than she imagined. The staff here is indifferent, and the area is bleak. The isolation is suffocating. Her colleagues rarely make eye contact, and those who do seem almost afraid to engage. They know what's happened to Debbie, and they know that she has been relegated to this corner of the company as a form of punishment. Debbie spends her days in silence, her once vibrant personality fading with each passing day. The job that once brought her a sense of accomplishment now feels like a burden she can barely carry. Her confidence erodes as she faces the crushing reality that she has become an outsider at her own workplace. The emotional toll of the demotion and isolation begins to take its toll on Debbie's mental health. The crushing weight of the harassment, the loss of her professional identity, and the overwhelming sense of betrayal leave her feeling hopeless. She tries to push through, but it's no use. Her body and mind are worn thin. Debbie's friends and coworkers notice the change. Carmen is especially concerned, watching her once vibrant friend slowly fall apart. One day, Carmen takes Debbie aside, her face full of concern. "Debbie, you've been through so much," Carmen says gently. "You need to see someone, a therapist, someone who can help you through this." Debbie hesitates at first. She's always prided herself on being strong, on handling things on her own. But the emotional weight is becoming unbearable, and the thought of talking to a professional doesn't seem so foreign anymore. After some prodding, Debbie agrees. She makes an appointment with Dr. Lisa Matthews, a psychiatrist who specializes in workplace trauma. The first session is difficult. Debbie doesn't know where to start. She feels ashamed for needing help, for feeling so weak. But Dr. Matthews is patient, listening to Debbie's story without judgment. "Debbie," Dr. Matthews says, after hearing Debbie recount the series of events that led her to this point, "what you're experiencing is trauma. What Jackie did to you, what your company did, wasn't just bullying. It was psychological manipulation. The damage that's been done is real." Debbie nods, the tears finally breaking free. She's been holding so much in for so long, and now, in this safe space, it all comes pouring out. The overwhelming stress, the loss of her dignity, the deep emotional wound of being betrayed by someone she trusted. It's too much for her to bear alone. In the midst of her mental health struggles, Debbie begins to consider the possibility of legal action. Carmen's insistence that she stand up for herself has taken root, and slowly, Debbie begins to find the courage to do what she never thought she would: fight back. She reaches out to a lawyer, Leonard Leeds, a determined and experienced employment attorney who specializes in workplace discrimination and harassment cases. From the very first consultation, Debbie feels a sense of relief. Finally, someone believes her story. Finally, someone is willing to help. Leonard listens intently to Debbie's account of the harassment, the manipulation, the betrayal. He doesn't dismiss her claims, instead he validates her experience. "This is a clear case of workplace harassment, Debbie," Leonard says, his voice firm. "What Jackie and your company did to you isn't just unethical, it's illegal. We can take action." The tension builds as Leonard drafts a letter to Atlantic Automotive Group, outlining the harassment and wrongful treatment Debbie has suffered. The letter demands a formal investigation and threatens legal action if the company fails to respond appropriately. It's a bold step, one that Debbie hesitates to take, but deep down, she knows it's necessary. The letter is sent, and Debbie waits, her anxiety building with each passing day. The idea of confronting the company that once gave her a career feels terrifying, but it's the only way forward. She wonders if she'll ever find justice, but at least now she has a voice. Just days after the lawyer's letter is sent, Debbie is fired. The coldness of the decision is palpable. Jackie doesn't even have the decency to meet Debbie face to face. Instead, the termination comes via email, in a short, detached message. "We regret to inform you that your employment with Atlantic Automotive Group has been terminated, effective immediately." Debbie stares at the email, her heart sinking into her stomach. She feels a sharp sting of betrayal, a pain that cuts deeper than anything physical. She knew things weren't right, but to be fired in such a heartless manner, after everything she's been through, feels like the final blow. Jackie's coldness is undeniable. There is no apology, no explanation, just a final severing of the professional relationship that Debbie thought she had with her boss. Jackie's voice echoes in Debbie's mind. "I may have to take you up on that offer one day." The manipulation that began with those words has come full circle. Debbie is left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She no longer has her job, her health is in tatters, and her mental well-being has been pushed to the breaking point. She questions if she'll ever recover from the emotional scars left by the harassment, the betrayal, and the system that failed her. Debbie's path toward justice is fraught with obstacles, but she's not turning back now. After months of emotional turmoil, isolation, and physical pain, she makes the bold decision to file a lawsuit against Atlantic Automotive Group for discrimination and harassment. The lawsuit seeks millions in damages for the emotional and financial strain Jackie's manipulation and the company's mistreatment have caused. Debbie is no longer the meek, self-doubting woman she was at the beginning of this journey. In this moment, she finds the courage to fight back. The decision to sue is not just about the money. It's about reclaiming her voice, about standing up for the woman she once was and the person she's become through this ordeal. The legal proceedings are long and grueling. Tension mounts as Debbie finds herself up against a corporate behemoth determined to protect its reputation at all costs. Atlantic Automotive Group hires a team of high-powered attorneys who spin the narrative that Debbie was simply a disgruntled employee seeking revenge after a routine demotion. The courtroom becomes a battleground, and Debbie must relive every painful moment of her ordeal. The manipulation by Jackie, the betrayal of her trust, the emotional and physical scars left by her sacrifice. It's excruciating, but she knows this is her only shot at justice. In the meantime, the media begins to take interest. The story of Debbie Stevens, a woman who once gave so much of herself to help others, becomes a symbol of corporate greed and the mistreatment of employees. News outlets run stories, and public opinion begins to turn in Debbie's favor. But even as the tide shifts, Jackie remains silent, refusing to offer any statement on the allegations, calling them unfounded and without merit. Behind closed doors, Debbie is bombarded with questions about her motivations. Why would she donate a kidney to someone she barely knew? Was it selflessness, or was there something more? As the case drags on, Debbie finds herself questioning everything she thought she knew about her decisions and her trust in others. Was she manipulated into making a choice she now regrets? Or was she simply trying to be a good person in a world that often takes advantage of that very trait? As the legal case drags on, more and more details about Jackie's manipulation come to light. Witnesses from the company testify that Jackie's behavior toward Debbie was far more than just professional disagreement. One former employee speaks about how Jackie often belittled Debbie, making her feel small and insignificant. Another reveals that Jackie frequently played mind games with her subordinates, using her position of power to push employees into uncomfortable situations. Debbie is left to wrestle with the painful realization that even when the truth is staring everyone in the face, those in power can still manipulate the narrative. The company is protected by a wall of legal and corporate might, and Jackie remains untouchable, her true motivations obscured by layers of denials and lies. After months of legal battles, accusations, and public scrutiny, Debbie finds herself at a crossroads. She's exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. The case is far from over, but something inside her has shifted. She sits alone one night, reflecting on everything she has been through, the betrayal, the pain, the loss of her job, her health, and her sense of self. She thinks back to the day she made the decision to donate her kidney to Jackie. It seemed like the right thing to do. Jackie had convinced her that she needed help, and Debbie, ever the selfless person, was willing to give. But now Debbie wonders if she was simply manipulated by a woman who knew how to play on her emotions. The process is long and fraught with setbacks, but Debbie's resolve grows stronger each day. Even if she never wins her lawsuit, even if the company never admits to its wrongdoings, she will never again be silenced. She will never again allow someone like Jackie to manipulate her for their own gain. Debbie has come to realize that true justice isn't always about the legal system. It's about finding the strength to stand up, to speak out, and to refuse to let the truth be buried under layers of lies. And in the end, that is the most empowering victory of all.